Gauge Uncut. I'm here with Tania Shaw
Hello,
for
everyone.
episode 2 of the duo. So we had a lot of people that really enjoyed hearing Tania and my story. And so what we thought out is we'll kind of give you a little bit more background. Some of you do know, some of you don't know that Tania had a kind of a story as well as this what we're going through right now. Before we had the heart problems, anything like that, we had what's called PKD, polycystic kidney disease, and she'll be able to explain it a little better than I can. But as far as we're going to talk a little bit about how it affected our family, how it affects us even today, and yeah, so this isn't our first rodeo. Let's talk a little bit about it. Tania?
Well, so PKD is polycystic kidney disease, and it is a genetic disease. Typically, it's passed down from generation to generation. And so what it is where cysts grow on your kidneys, and as they grow, they tend to consume all of the filters on your kidneys, which is what filters your blood. And if you don't know what your kidneys do, you cannot live without them. They control a lot, or they contribute to a lot of your everyday health. So as your blood is being filtered, your kidneys filter. You're born with like millions of little filters on your kidneys. They do not renew. Once they are damaged forever. And so I was diagnosed with polycystic kidney disease when I was 28, and had just found out that I was pregnant with Lana, who was our oldest one. And so basically what they told me was, so sorry, not much you can do about it. It's not treatable. It's not curable. You will eventually have to go on dialysis, and you'll probably die. And you're looking at 45 years, basically, is kind of what they told me my, lifespan would be, unless I, went on dialysis and was able to live on dialysis for a while. And people can live for, 20 years or so on dialysis, but it's not a great life, and can be very miserable when you're having to go do dialysis. Now, if you're not familiar with what dialysis is, that is where a machine filters your blood. So basically, it's a needle or a port or whichever one you have, and it pulls your blood through this machine that filters all the toxins and everything out of your blood, and then puts it back into your body. And this has to be done multiple times a week. For me, it was 3 days a week, 4 hours at a time. For other people, it can be, 5 or 6 hour process. Depends on, how your body is functioning at the time, and, what your blood levels are. And they do lots of labs and follow that, and they stay really on top of that. But for us, that was that was a big change in our life, for me to have to do 3 days of dialysis. So I didn't start getting sick until, what would you say, 2017?
It's probably about right.
Yeah, like really sick. Like, through the years, my doctors kind of kept track of like my kidney function and watching it. And we've just seen it like, kind of decline on this little, you kind of going downhill little by little by little. And then I started with a new nephrologist, which is a kidney specialist, in I think it was earlier than that. It was 2015 when I started seeing her. And then it kind of come to a point where I was going to need a specialist to kind of manage it. And we knew that. And just really that's when we kind of said, well, what can we do to get ahead of this? In the past, the nephrologist that I had saw when I first was initially diagnosed, there were no options. And she said, well, you're a perfect candidate for a kidney transplant. And so we said, well, all right, what do we need to do to go through that process? How do we do that? And so that kind of started a journey of, a journey to getting a transplant, and knowing that that was going to be my best option for, long term. And so that's kind of where we started. We went to Emory, and I had to go through lots of testing. They want to make sure that you are a good candidate before all of that. And I mean, you can kind of talk some about like how you felt about
Well,
all of that.
terrified, stressed. Who wants to be on your second child, a newborn baby on the way? You find out that during this pregnancy she has a condition that's hereditary that you can't do anything about. So I've got two little girls now. One we've had for a while was Lana, when not no say a while. We had for about 2 years. She was about 2 years old, 3 when Layla was born.
Yeah, she was 3 when Layla was born.
So that's a lot. I mean, how do you think? What am I going to do as a father with two little girls who absolutely, I believe, needs a mother. I mean, every child needs a mother, in my opinion, and I'm sad to say when people doesn't have that option, it's difficult. But in the same ways, they need a father. But I grew up and with a lot of father figures, but I was absent a father, but I had a mom. And so that kind of filled in, and the father figures, stepped up and to play there. But that being said, when she talks about dialysis, man, that's such a terrifying thing to see your spouse go through. How tasking it is on their body. The process of watching, your spouse actually, or whoever it is, your family member, stop eating because they can start to taste metals, things like that, and they just start starving themselves because they don't like the taste of the food, or they've lost all joy in the food process. And she can talk more about that and how that affected. But
Not really
we
an
had
appetite.
to have a community to help us survive this. I mean, we had Miss Nixon, which was the elementary school, one of the principal, right? If I'm saying that right, it's the principal. No,
Miss Nichols was
Miss
the
Nichols. I'm sorry.
assistant principal at the time, and Miss Nixon was just one of the teachers.
Okay, so Miss Nichols actually assisted us because I was actually working in Rome and actually taking the kids
It was
from
both of them.
school, both girls, from the middle school to the dialysis center to sit with their mom until I could get done with work and be there to get the kids. And pick her up potentially, but usually just the kids until she came home, which she would come home completely wiped out from the dialysis and need to go to sleep immediately after. So it was me, the girls, and the pets,
Trying to figure out
trying
dinner.
to figure out dinner, trying to plan my, my next day. And quite honestly, how do you don't ever know exactly what plan. Life's got so many curveballs. What if somebody gets sick? How do I keep the sick kids away from mom because they can make mom worse? So as you can see already, the struggle's real at this point, and there's nowhere to run and hide. You either lay down and die, or you figure out a way to fight.
Absolutely.
So you have to look at proper nutrition. You have to look at exercise, health, sleep, and then managing stress. I mean, guys, I know you're the rest of us. We could write a book on stress, right? Stress comes in just normal day life, but now it's magnified because your stress is life or death. So, again, Tania, talk to us a little bit about that process of let them know how it was going through this, especially appetite wise, and then eventually we end up into your potassium levels and all those shifting around and what that process.
Well, that would kind of happen right I guess a few months before I started dialysis, I really was, I had gone through we had gone through the process of being put on the transplant list and being approved for a transplant. I'd gone through lots of people who had went through the process to see if they could donate a kidney to me as a living donor. A living donor gives you the best longevity for your kidney, rather than what is a cadaver donor, which is someone who's passed away and has donated their organs. So with a living donor, you get a longer lifespan of that kidney before you need another transplant. And so that was kind of what we were hoping for, was a living donor, especially considering that I was a younger candidate. And but no, none of our family, none of our friends, no one was able to get through the rigorous process of the screening in order to be a donor. One of the things is they don't want to remove a healthy organ from someone who may have issues later. And so they want to make sure that whoever donates is, the healthiest as possible, so that, in the long run, it isn't detrimental. Donating isn't detrimental to their own health. So I was holding out on the dialysis thing. I knew what a process that was. I had seen other family members that had gone through dialysis, and was not looking forward to that at all. And so I was really holding out until the very last moment. But in that holding out, I lost my appetite, and just really always had a bad taste in my mouth. It was just, I became a lot weaker and a lot more fatigued and just tired all the time. Lost my coloring. My parents look back now and they tell me that I looked gray. And I can look back in pictures and say, oh, that was when I was getting sick. And I can see it now, but in the moment, I was determined to just press on and move forward until I could get a donor and forego the whole dialysis thing. I didn't want to be on dialysis. But it was December of 2018. Rocky looked at me and said, you have to go see your doctor. And I was scheduled for a follow-up in January, but, I called and I said, I've lost my appetite. I can't eat anything. And so they got me in, and she said, you have to have dialysis by the end of the week. It is no longer, saying no or putting this off is no longer an option. So at that point, I had to go in and get a permacath, which is a little port that they attach to your jugular artery, and they run it under your collarbone so that they can give you dialysis immediately.
This is absolutely horrifying and painful, I will tell you. I watched her go through more than one of these because they don't always hold up and they fail. Mm-hmm. One of which, we were in the hospital, and due to her potassium levels, right?
Yeah.
They were unable to give her anesthesia. So they carried her. This is kind of a surgical procedure.
It is. They normally put you to sleep for it.
They did it with her awake and with no anesthesia. Mm-hmm. So imagine this tube they run up and down through your neck and under your collarbone. And they're doing this with no anesthesia and you awake.
Well, so the danger there was, because I had not been eating, because I had not had such an appetite, my potassium was dangerously low. And potassium affects a lot of the way your heart functions. There are a lot of electrolytes and nutrients that you hear about every day, and you think, oh yeah, those are things that I eat, those are things that I need, but you don't really know what they do in your body. But your potassium, the anesthesiologist came in and he said, if I put you under and for this, your heart will probably stop. And I'm not going to do that. There is no option there. So they did come in and they did ask me, this is the other way we can do this. We can do just a nerve block. You won't feel anything, just some pressure. It was not very comfortable at all to have that. Like I said, they put this tube into your jugular, and then they run it underneath your collarbone, and it comes out your chest here. And it has these two little prongs, one for blood flow out and one for blood flow in. And so, yeah, that wasn't pleasant. And then, in the meantime, they were giving me potassium to try to pull my potassium back up. And potassium burns as it goes in your vein. It's the worst thing that I have ever have, and I don't wish that on anybody. And so I was on potassium. I had to be hospitalized for several days after that. They started dialysis immediately in the hospital, and the first permacath didn't work. So I had to go have another one. And the tube, it gotten a bend in it or something, and it just wasn't, the blood flow wasn't flowing correctly. And so thankfully by that time my potassium had come up enough that they could put me to sleep. And so for the second permacath I was asleep, and I think it was for me it was much smoother. I don't know about the surgeon, but so I had the permacath for, let's see, they told me I could keep it for 6 months to a year. Before they did, what's it called? The needle in the arm, where they do a graft or, and my brain's going to go blank right now. Anyway, it's where they put
They take a vein out of your leg or something.
They merge veins together and make a vein sturdy enough to handle the blood flow in and out. And right now my brain is not. They can also do it as a graft, and I can't think of what it's called right now. I didn't want that because that can leave scarring, and it can cause knots and stuff to form in your arm if they don't rotate the needles and all. I mean, there's some more complications to that. I did not want that. And so, like I said, I was holding out for that kidney transplant. I knew that I would get a kidney transplant, but I was also told 5 to 7 years on the waiting list, that to expect to be on dialysis for 5 to 7 years. And looking at that process of showing up somewhere 3 days a week and sitting there for 4 hours while you're being dialyzed, and then going home, and I immediately crashed. And I feel like I miss out on so much of my kids during that time. You know, Lana was in the 8th grade, Layla was in the 4th grade. They had such support at school for both of them. Both of them had wonderful teachers that really supported them, that they could go to and talk with and really talk about mommy's sick and this is how I feel. And they really, really supported them. I could not have asked for a better support system for my kids than the school system here. And so, and that's, we're in Somerville, so that's Chattooga Middle and Chattooga Elementary where they were at that point in time. But, you know, and then having teachers step in and what can we do? How can we help you? And how can we help your kids? Like, how can we support them? And having them, you know, to the point of Lana rode the bus to the elementary school, and either the teacher or a principal would drop them by the dialysis center, which is at the end of the road. And so they could sit and hang out until I was done or until Rocky was able to come get them. But that was such a great help. I think it took a lot of, it took a lot of worry off of me to, like, well, how am I going to go get them? I can't go get them because I'm being dialyzed. And sometimes he would be, you know, he was working in Rome. So, you know, you guys know how it is, the kids, and they can't ride the bus because there's nobody home to get them off the bus and they're little. So community was really, really important.
And we want to go over as far as exhaustion, physical exhaustion at time. There was days, because my days seemed endless at that point, because I woke up and had the same routine of doing, I mean, not that it was her fault, obviously it wasn't, but having to take on a dual role of daddy and mom at times, and also care for her because she needs the attention. And no one knows, and to this day, how much time you have in a day, because I hear people say during all this, guys, I had to go to the gym. I had to keep myself in the top physical peak position condition that I could be in because I couldn't afford to go down. I couldn't afford to get sick. I was the only one, and if I potentially get sick or the kids get sick, they could get her sick. And and when you're
Yeah.
already on dialysis, your immune system's compromised, so it can be fatal. So you've got to look at the fact that there was obviously no way that getting sick was ever an option for
Right.
us. And it was just a continuous to drive forward. And when people say, I don't have time to do this, I took care of a sick and, dying wife at that point in time, and two kids, pets, the household, the work, all that load. And I made time to do what I needed to do for myself as well. So kind of value what you have when it comes to time when you sit there and bellyache and whine on what you don't, because there's always someone that has a deeper hole than you do that they're in, and they've still got to battle through it. You don't know how much time and how much effort and what you can do until you don't have any other option but to do it.
Yeah. Well, even during that time, I was going to the gym. Once I started dialysis, my appetites kind of started back returning, and we really focused on diet and nutrition and exercise because my goal was, when you go on dialysis, you see a lot of people that say, well, I wasn't a candidate for a transplant. I couldn't, they told me no. And I was determined they were not going to tell me no. And, so, I made sure I was eating right and following the diet that, I was given. There's certain things on dialysis you cannot eat, because I went from having low potassium to not being able to take in a whole lot of potassium. So I started having to watch what I ate, potassium, phosphorus, different calcium levels. All of that really affects your, it's in your blood, and it affects whether or not the types of, what am I thinking of? How your body functions. So if dialysis isn't removing enough of the excess of that, then you have to eat less. So if you have a higher potassium level and dialysis can only remove so much of that, then you have to consume less of that, if that makes sense. So you had to follow a renal diet. I really had to watch what I ate. There were things that we learned to substitute, not only for that. So potatoes, turnips make a great substitute for potatoes. Who knew? Well, we figured that out. So there was things that we had to learn how to work around as far as diet and nutrition, but I was also going to the gym, at least once or twice a week during this time when I was on dialysis 3 days a week. Now, it wasn't on my dialysis days, obviously, but, the weekends, I had dialysis Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so I would usually go maybe one day during the week, a Tuesday, Thursday, and then a Saturday or a Sunday. And so, I would go do what I could do. Now, I wasn't getting in, an hour-long workout. I might go and spend 5 to 10 minutes on an elliptical or a bike and lift weights. Let's do some light weightlifting for 5 to 10 minutes, some strength training. And that might be all I could do, but I did what I could do. And then that was, that progressed. And so I think because of that, when it came time, when a kidney came available, because I was putting in the work to keep myself healthy, I think that's what made me a good candidate for the transplant.
Yeah, let's talk about that story a little bit. So, I've said it from my perspective before, but let's hear it from hers. So, that day, we are out to eat, and I'll let her fill in the rest of that from there, on when we get the call and our reactions to this, and let's go from there.
So we're about 11 months into my dialysis treatment. I had started in December. This was November. So, we were getting close to that 1 year mark. And, I was just following up with my regular appointments. There wasn't really any talk of any like, hey, we're looking, or there was no updates at that point. So this call really kind of came out of the blue, but I remember it. We were sitting at Chili's eating lunch together, and it was, it was the 12th of November, and I get a call, and by the time I had got the call, it had went to voicemail. But I saw that it was Emery, my transplant coordinator, and so I was like, I need to call them back. And so I call her back, and she was like, so, Miss Shaw, we need you to be here on the 14th for pre-op. And I'm like, she's like, we have you a kidney and you're scheduled for a transplant on November 27th. Is that going to work for you? And I said, absolutely, we will make it work. And, I mean, I cannot tell you, I mean, I was completely overjoyed. I think, everybody, Chili's was one of our local spots that we went to a lot. So we knew the waitress and one of the managers. And so, they knew what we were going through. And so it was just this big celebration in the middle of Chili's that I was getting a kidney. And, the excitement was overwhelming. I think we immediately started making phone calls to all of our family, and I went back to the office where I was working at the time, and told all my coworkers and started making arrangements for, okay, I'm going to be out, and these are the things that are going to need to be covered. Is really making arrangements for this kidney transplant, and it happened really quickly. I did pre-op 2 days later, and then, we prepped for surgery. And the day before Thanksgiving, I went in to Emory and found out my kidney was coming from a person in California. And my surgeon came in and said, kidney looks good. I watched them remove it, and it is just landed on the roof. And so we're ready. We're going to pull you into surgery. And so it was just this amazing process. I mean, that they flew it on a commercial plane across the country, and then helicoptered it in from the airport. And just these things that you don't really think about that goes into these processes. And so I was able to get a transplant, and did pretty well initially after that. And then I think I was up and walking the next day. And yes, it was painful, but I wasn't gonna slow down for anything. And I think those are things that you have to remember. Sometimes you just have to push through the pain and work through it, and not let it flatten you out. But I had, my family there, Rocky, and, my mom and dad, and my uncle, and so my sister. It just, we had all that family support, and Rocky stayed with me the whole time and helped me get up and out, in and out of the bed, and walked with me around and around the hallway. I think the nurses were called the doctor and was like, she's up walking. Because he came in and he was like, so I hear you're up walking. I was like, yeah. And so then I got to go home that weekend. But one of the things about transplants is there are sometimes you have a rejection. And I did. About, I think I went home Sunday. And then I had to come back on Monday, I think. Yeah, it was Monday I went back for labs. And they did some labs. And I got a call Monday night, and they were like, we need you back at the hospital first thing tomorrow morning. Pack a bag. And I'm like, oh, no. So we went back to the hospital. They had to do a biopsy. But it came back that my body was rejecting the new kidney. So that meant another week in the hospital and some really, really strong immunosuppressants that completely wiped my immune system. And so when you have a transplant, you get on they have to suppress your immune system because your body will, reject it because of the rejections and the risk of it. And that is a forever thing. So there are medications that I will be on lifetime medications. And those aren't cheap. And, that's some of the financial ramifications of illnesses is making sure, we have to keep really good insurance because my medications are quite expensive each month. But back to the rejection, we were able to get through that and go home in about a week. And everything's been good since. That I get labs, regular labs, and they still keep track of all of that and making sure that all of my levels are staying good and my kidney is doing good. I still have my 2 natural kidneys because they don't take them out. They just give you an extra one. And I guess, what else? What else we need to talk about?
I was thinking, just going back to, okay, so most of you who know me as far as direction-wise and directionally challenged, that's me. So, Emory Hospital, if you've ever been inside of it, or Piedmont or any of them, man, you can get lost quick. But I was almost proud of myself because I refused to leave her. And so I stayed at the hospital. I'm talking about breakfast, dinner, lunch, bedtime. I was there. So I learned to navigate and go to all the, the nurses taught me where to go eat, who had the best food. And man, they really had some good food up there. And I probably put on a few pounds just trying to eat, especially my weak point is pizza. And they had some killer pizza at Emory.
They did do a Thanksgiving dinner too.
They did do a Thanksgiving dinner. And I guess they had like a pre-Christmas party. I don't remember what we were there for. It was the rejection.
I think it was the rejection.
They had a Christmas party when I was there and had the Grinch. I have pictures of that somewhere. Yeah. All on you can find on my Facebook somewhere.
They had a huge blowout for their employees and one of the lobbies.
And that was really cool. So, to go through that stuff, but the thing about the appreciation I learned from Emory, especially in the transplant, is the nurses were so kind and so supportive. Mm-hmm. I was, treated well just as well as she was to make sure I needed anything while I was there. And the community, I want to say there's a lot of the Romans here in Rome, Georgia, that I worked with downtown and other places that sent me money to make sure I had stuff to eat there when I was there. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not working at this point in time. I was working for JBM at the time, and they were very kind and supportive of what we were going through, and they were there for us. But but all this stuff's expensive. Eating every day, you're mm-hmm. eating out pretty much every day. The hospital meals aren't free.
No.
It's good
and
food.
They're not cheap. They're like eating at a restaurant meal.
Yeah, they're like eating out every night. And, so that money would stack up, and mm-hmm. without the community support that I got, there's no way I would have ever been able to do it. Yeah. So I really appreciate that. It's kind of what we're doing this for, is kind of paying back and letting people listen to. I know everybody right now in this economy, and we went through COVID, and I'll get into that. We're about to dive in just a little bit about that taste. Is right after this surgery, and we get home. Guess what? Here comes COVID.
We all had the flu first.
Yeah, we all had the flu first. Right? We battled the flu.
Yeah, both kids had the flu, and then Rocky had the flu, and I get out of the hospital after this rejection, and I don't have an immune system at that point in time, basically. And they're like, you can't be around anybody that's sick. And I'm having to go back to Emory. I think it was, twice a week?
Yeah.
It was twice a week at the first beginning of it. And so, we're having to keep the kids away from me, and then Rocky's having to take care of me and the one kid that's not sick, and the kid that's sick is at my mom's house. And then on the days I had to go back to Emory, my mom or my dad drove me because Rocky had to go back to work, and so then we would have to flip-flop, and I would have to go to he would have to go drop me off, and my mom would have to clean, and then the kid that was sick would go back with him, and then we would flip-flop again, and then it was like one got sick, and then I think it was Lana first. Lana had the flu first, and then she got better, and then Layla had the flu, and then Rocky got the flu. And so when Rocky got the flu, we went and stayed with my mom and left him at home to take care of himself. And so, and all you men and all you wives out there know that men cannot take care of themselves when they're sick.
It's absolutely true. We are huge babies. And so this part of this conversation, by the way, Dalton and Summer Gibbs, you should appreciate, I know you've just been through this whole sickness process with the twins and my buddy Bentley. So we love you guys, and we know.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're not going through anything that it does, not that it makes it any better. As you're going through it, it still sucks.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
So,
there is the other side of it. You do come out of it. So
you come out of it. Things will get better. They might get worse again, but then they'll get better. They always get better.
Yeah. But you're right. COVID hit right after that. So, we get through that. I get to a point where, I can get back to work, and, I go back to work kind of in a little bit more of a limited capacity, but then COVID hits, and then my doctors are calling saying, hey, you can't be around anybody. You need to find a way to work from home, which I was fortunate at that time that the job I had, we were able to work that out so that I could work from home. But then, like, as soon as that started, the entire country shut down. So we were all working from home, and that, lasted several months. And so, it was just this whole, like, having to stay away from everybody. But in the meantime, the kids were in and out of school. Sometimes they had school, sometimes they didn't have school. And sure enough, I have a kid that comes home with COVID. And then the second kid gets COVID. And then,
Then I get COVID.
Yeah, and this was like August. We had like moved past the big breakout part. And, this was August of the following year, wasn't it? Because we had vaccines. I had been vaccinated because my doctor insisted that I get vaccinated. And so, so this was like 2019, 2020. Yeah, because the vaccines came out like April or so. So I guess it was the August. I'm having to think through my timeline here. So I guess it was August of 2020. Because it was my birthday, August of 27th of 2020, that I had to go to Emory and get antibodies because I had COVID. Because immediately when I picked up the phone and was like, hey, I just tested positive for COVID, they're like, we need to see you immediately. And so fortunately, I did not get very sick. I was the fortunate one to not get very sick. And just, really the fatigue was the worst part. But, we kind of got through that. But still, in that same instance, we moved past COVID, but I am still, my immune system is still compromised. I am still at risk for, pretty much everything that goes around, the, flu, cold, all of that is easier for me to contract. And so, and when it is something simple like, food poisoning, which usually goes away in about 24 hours, for me, that can last for days. I mean, just as simple as, eating some sort of bacteria. And that's the thing that they don't, they didn't really tell you, was those things like you can't eat, a medium rare steak anymore. You can't eat sushi. You can't eat over easy eggs. Anything that can subject you to any kind of foodborne illness, you have to take out of your diet. And so, those are things that you don't really think about, and it's kind of a moot point because it's not like you're gonna like give up a chance at life just because you can't eat your steak the way you want to anymore. But it would have been nice to know, so I could have had at least one really good steak before. But that's okay, and some sushi. But well,
Yeah, we can still see if I go out and I know you're gonna give me flack right now because I still eat mine medium rare, and she will look at my steak rare with very envious eyes, and maybe her mouth might water a little bit too. So, but I'm a great husband, and I pass her the A1 so that she can smother it in something to kind of compensate for that.
Well, okay, so there are a few places that even if you get it well done, it's not crispy, and I appreciate that. But for the most part, I just stick to chicken. So I think we went to a really, really nice place once, and people were like, "Who would order chicken?" I'm like, "Me."
That was Ruth Chris.
Yeah.
That was JBM's Christmas party.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, "Sorry, I have to order the chicken." Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely changed our lives. I think, there are things now that we have to be a little bit more careful about and we have to be a little bit more mindful about. But overall, I mean, I'm healthy, as healthy as I can be. And, the alternative is so much worse. So, I'm definitely thankful. Those of you who wonder about my donor, her name is Mary. We were able to get put in touch with each other. Donors are anonymous, and we had to go through Emory to communicate for a little while, and then we were able to kind of start communicating on our own. But we have been able to kind of develop a relationship, and, she's from Berkeley, California. And so she was able to donate a kidney. And just to kind of explain how that process worked is there is a kind of an exchange program where if you have someone you want to donate to, but you don't match that person, you can donate a kidney into the exchange and they still get a kidney. It's somewhere on the list, but it somehow I don't know if it's makes them some sort of priority or exactly how it works, but that's the process that she had went to. She wanted to donate to her friend, wasn't able to because she was not a match, but decided to donate anyway because there were so many people on the list that needed kidneys, and I happened to be the best match on the list for her kidney. And then her friend was still able to get his kidney. It was a few weeks later after I got mine. And so we have been able to keep it in touch and develop a little bit of relationship so it's kind of a nice little friendship has come out of that would not have otherwise. So now I have people in California that, has, cheered me on, really taken an interest in Lana and all of her projects and really cheering her on. And so it kind of developed another little support system for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess kind of starting to wrap this up a little bit, I want to take a moment and let both of us give a moment to encourage you. You saw, and we're sharing this with you, not out of sympathy. We went through what we went through, and we came out stronger. We're going through... That was the first battle we have. I mean, some of us, I know several of you have the same story. It's similar to me. You started off live fighting. So we don't know any other way. We don't roll over and we don't lay down. So, Tania had this polycystic kidney disease, and I always say, and I know someone else said this, so I'm ripping it off from them, but whoever said it, everything's impossible until someone does it. So every time we see something impossible or somebody sticks something in front of us, we're going to prove them wrong, and it's going to be the first time that someone says, well, I guess we were wrong. It's not impossible. And it's not impossible. You've just got to bear down and fight through it. Eventually, whatever it is has to give way, and you're going to pass it up. Tania had that mindset. I had that mindset with it. Now that we're dealing with my heart issues, the same thing applies. I'm not giving up. She's not giving up. and we're going to fight through it. We see so many people that are going through tough times right now, and that's really why we're doing this. We're letting you know. I know there's people that still talk to us and ask her and want to talk about the kidneys and what has happened there. So now you've heard that story, you know what you need to do. Get off your ass. Don't sit there. Don't take what the doctors tell you for a written rule. Do some research. Do it on your own, because doctors only know so much. And I'm not discrediting them. Doctors don't know nutrition. Seek out there's good sources here in Rome, Georgia. Keith Osmond. Go to Spartan Smoothie. Go to Omni Wellness. He has, I'm gonna get tongue tied right now on all the services he has. My good friend that ran Macros has a program right now that he goes through, Keith. I can't remember. It's the Pack on the Pounds. So
Protein by the pound.
Protein by the pound. There is so many great ways, and I know it's expensive and it's hard to eat right. I know exactly that it's a lot cheaper to go to McDonald's and get a 99-cent cheeseburger. And then, well, hell,
They're
it's
not
not even 99 cents anymore. So why kill yourself for the meals that you're eating that's going to slowly put you in the grave or put you in a condition that's far worse? So seek out those things, but stay brave, stay strong. Seek out, messages online. I can refer you over to other things. Tania will. And so let's talk about the future a little bit. So we're working on, through selling shirts, through working out some different things, selling money. We have took on 12 Gauge Promotions is now taking care. We were actually working with several partners on their social media. At Moe's Original Barbecue and Las Mesas here in Rome, Mexican Grill. We're looking at several other partners. So if you need someone, someone that needs some help in social media, we're willing to let 12 Gauge Promotions come in there and let's talk to you. So in the future, what we're planning on doing is Tania's working on and laying out the plans for her own podcast. So she can talk to you ladies, gentlemen, whoever want to listen to her.
Yeah.
And maybe talk about offloading some of this stress and this, that she's got plans. Tania has a psychology degree through Barry, so she's got some experience, and she's going to start using that gift and open up a little bit to you guys and let you in and hear some of her thoughts and maybe things that can help you. Like we're going through with Lana trying to get ready for college.
Yes. And
that's the big thing that we've talked about. Nobody's really ready for, and she's going through that, and she can share that with you guys as well, so that you're prepared, or at least have some kind of outlet of knowing what she's going through, so that what you might be going through real soon. Other than that, what I would like to say is, please follow us, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, follow me on Instagram. I will provide links. In the when we post all this, it'll be available to you. Come see us at the KLT shows. We actually, this Saturday, we will be at the Grand Prix of Deep South, where they're going to crown a new champion. And it's been a while. And Narcissism, I'm not going to be able to remember all the guys that are there, but Narcissism and Skrilla the Great, my boy, is going to be in there. So, and man, he's one of the most decorated champions. I'm in Skrilla's corner for this one to bring it home, but we will be there. Teddy Long will be there. Eric Bischoff. So you're talking about the next Georgia legend is with a bunch of legends and future legends as well. So, Tania, why don't you close us off? Close us out.
Close us out. Well, so I want to leave you with a quote that, and you may think this is cheesy, but that's okay. But this was one thing that really kind of got me through some of the days that you just want to give up. Because let's face it, no matter how strong you are and no matter how stubborn you are, you have days where you're just like, why am I doing this? But this quote kind of just struck me one day, and it's from the TV show Scandal. I don't know if you know what that's about, but it's not so much about the TV show as it is the actual quote. But it was on a day where I just, you have those days you just want to run away from it all. But the quote says, "You don't get to run because you're a gladiator. And gladiators, they don't run. They slay dragons, they wipe off the blood, they stitch up their wounds, and they live to fight another day. You don't get to run." And so that really struck me, not only because, it was an illness. I couldn't really run from it, but it hit me in a moment that I needed that reminder of who I am. And at the core, I'm a fighter. I am a gladiator. I am going to face whatever comes my way head on and, go out fighting one way or the other. And so I think you need to find something. Maybe it's that quote. Maybe it's something else, but something, that really resonates with who you are. And your fighting spirit that you can just hold on to and remind yourself on the days that you're not feeling that. It's kind of like a mantra that sometimes you just kind of have to repeat to yourself. And so that's what I would say as we're leaving.
I like that. That's awesome. But that's not how we close out this podcast. What's this podcast?
How do we close out this podcast?
What's this podcast name?
What's this podcast? 12 Gauge.
12 Gauge Uncut. So we always end with beware the 12 gauge.